Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
For the second straight night, we get a Game 7 in the NBA. For the second straight night, a team goes painfully cold from long range. And for the second straight night, it costs them the series. The Rockets missed 27 straight threes, blew a double-digit lead, and now we get Warriors-Cavs Game 4, reminding us all the NBA season is sort of like a Fast and the Furious movie. You know how it's going to end, so you just have to enjoy the explosions along the way.
And also family first.
It's Golic and Wingo. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey. Mike Golic Jr. We're going to get to some epic NBA stuff, some great NHL action from last night. But first and foremost, Mike, welcome back.
Thank you very much. It is nice to be back. I hope everybody had a wonderful, wonderful holiday weekend, and certainly, thanked any of the military people we saw out there, and certainly for those that gave their lives. I saw a bunch of great tweets out there yesterday, so we understand the significance of it. But then there was the significance of what you two were talking about yesterday about side dishes and cookouts and bed and people that kind of make fools of themselves.
We got to the core of what goes on, and we realized that more often than not, you're going to be in some pretty less than stellar situations at the cookout. For as joyous as the setting tends to be, there are a lot of really bad people that find their way to those.
Bad people, and then you guys were talking side dishes, too, were you not?
No, I mean, it all comes back to some theory that raisins exist in potato salad, which we couldn't find any sort of...
I'm one of those, if you're having an outdoor party, I'd be real careful about the side dishes like coleslaw, things that if it's hot out, don't have a lot of life expectancy. The half-life is not there.
We have a couple of those inflatable, mini serving things that are like the length of a table, and then you can put ice in them.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes sense.
Well, and see, the hot and cold was a hot debate yesterday on this because Fitz claims that he eats his baked beans cold at cookouts in the summer, which seems psychotic to me, and also had some outrageous take about mac and cheese that he introduced.
Oh, yeah, I heard the mac and cheese talk.
Mac and cheese is just a pasta. It's no different than spaghetti. That was my whole thing. It's a pasta. It's a noodle with sauce on it, which is the same thing as spaghetti.
Get out. Get out.
Just stupid. It's mac and cheese.
Don't even mess with mac and cheese.
It's macaroni pasta with the cheese sauce,
Mac and cheese is the catch-all. Mac and cheese is everything. A side dish, a meal, because you could put meats in it, not things like that. It is everything. It is the greatest.
You're listening to Golic and Wingo. Michael Wilbon's going to join us in just a couple of minutes. I do have to say, yes, the baked beans cold thing, I talked to several friends yesterday about, because that took on a life of its own. I think it's a Southern thing because you're used to it's 100 degrees and humid outside. So hot food just doesn't do well at a cookout. So you really, everything becomes cold at that point. So
yeah.
Oh, cold. Speaking of which, how cold did the Rockets get last night?
Oh,
did you see
look at what he did there.
Did you see what I did there?
You can leave now.
Wow.
I don't think
that was a pun so egregious the producers of The Bachelorette would edit it out.
Oh, jeez.
Still never seen an episode. 27 straight misses last night, and I think it really struck me as I was watching it, thinking, I mean, it's almost laughable that we're getting the same thing for a second consecutive night. Just after we watched Boston melt down from long range and have no other solution, it was the same thing all over again. We were watching a Houston team last night that, frankly, was getting the looks that throughout the course of the year they've managed to hit, and none of them went in, and there was no answer.
Well, both these games, correct me if I'm wrong, the shooting was horrific.
Yes.
Horrific. It went on longer in the Cleveland and Celtics game than it did last night. I mean, it was the third quarter. We'll get into it again. The third quarter yet again for the Golden State Warriors. They do something magical in the locker room at halftime to come out in the third quarter and do what they do. But the poor shooting that was going on and the total what-ifs of that Game 7, which are always fun to play. What if Kevin Durant kept playing the way he was playing in the first half and they lost? What will we be talking about today? What if, I know everybody's talking about Chris Paul was on the court where they missed 27 in a row. But that is just hard to fathom. 27 misses in a row from 3-point.
Let me tell you what, I've been in some bad blackjack tables, and that is about the worst luck I have ever heard of. 27 for a team that we hear live and die by the three all the time, but that had been a part of this let's flip the math movement. We talk about their analytically driven process of making sure they take a certain amount of threes in this game, but man, it got frustrating at some point for everyone involved to then see the mini run in the fourth quarter prompted by what else? shots back in the painted area.
Which was a little, I want to give the TV broadcast some credit because they mentioned at one point, hey, you can't just change who you are, right? You can't just change how you run your offense. That being said, when you're that cold at some point, you have to stop just putting up shots no matter what. There didn't seem to be a lot of a path there.
You got to stop the bleeding. You got to do something at that point because in the middle of that run, you can feel yourself hemorrhaging in that situation. We've all been a part of sports quicksand before, and so you've got to do something to dig yourself out. And it seems like if you just keep hammering away at those threes, just get something easy. You just need a building block at that point so you can sort of catch your breath, allow the crowd to catch their breath because that Houston crowd was rocking in the first half, and in that third quarter, they were knocked on their butts as much as anyone else.
You're listening to Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey. We're going to be joined by Michael Wilbon in just a couple minutes, but before we do that, let's get to a little of what's trending. We've been talking about it right now. The Warriors erased a 15-point deficit to defeat the Houston Rockets 101-92 in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. The third quarter once again proved to be the Rockets' undoing. The Warriors turned an 11-point halftime deficit into a 7-point lead going into the fourth.
In this series, 68 points. The Golden State Warriors outscored the Rockets in the third quarter. 130 points in the third quarter in the postseason. I don't like to just go to numbers all the time, but man, they do it just about every single time. And it's not like the opponent doesn't know it, doesn't know how good they are in the third quarter, yet they continue to do it over and over and over again. It blows my mind.
It's a microcosm of their season. Yeah. It's sloughing off when they have the chance to, and then when they're finally pushed and prompted, they decide to remember who they are. And Kevin Durant and Steph Curry really both having lackluster first halves, but at the same time, you look coming out of the first half and say, Steph Curry, 8 points, that ain't going to last.
Well, you started to think, too, when Klay Thompson got his third foul in what seemed like 30 seconds, you thought, it's going to even out. He's got to sit out of the game. They got no Chris Paul, so maybe this whole thing evens out, but it didn't work that way.
We'll get into it later because I think the staggering lackluster play from the Warriors at the beginning of this game, it stunned me that they came out so sort of disengaged early in the process, and then they still turn around and kick butt in the end, which means the Cleveland Cavaliers and Golden State Warriors will meet in the NBA Finals for the fourth straight season. It's the first time in any major sport that the two teams will meet for that championship in 4 straight
there's
seasons.
only one real number involved in this one. The Warriors are minus 1,000 to win the series.
God.
That means, again, for you non-gamblers out there, you have to bet it would take $1,000 bet to win $100. It's the largest favorite entering the NBA Finals over the last 15 years. But in that year, 2004, the Lakers were minus 700 against the Pistons. Pistons won that series, I think, in 5 in that one. So it certainly can be done. But I think everybody knew that or felt that the winner of the Western Conference was going to win it all because LeBron can only do so much. He can do a lot, but, against the teams in the West, maybe not going to be enough.
Yeah, we can go back and pull some of the stats from last year's NBA Finals where LeBron James, in the midst of a Herculean effort right now, might not even top what he was able to do in last year's NBA Finals, and it still wasn't enough on a team with Kyrie Irving. You remember the plus-minuses with LeBron on and off the court last year are only going to get worse with this current Cavs roster.
Which brings up a question we will have to have at some point about what's next for the NBA, because let's face it, we just learned last night that the Rockets couldn't find a way to get it done. They're about to get into some salary cap difficulties and some age difficulties with Chris Paul to have some tough decisions to make. And in the meantime, Cleveland's over here not getting any closer to topping Golden State.
Well, the thing is, though, Cleveland is over here still getting to the NBA Finals.
Sure.
So, what does that do for LeBron, even though we keep talking about the teammates around him? And that gets going, I think, a little too far at times. They're professional athletes, all right? I mean, they're good enough to play in the NBA.
One's a professional Roomba.
There you go. We have our fun with it, but they are professional athletes. They're not superstars, and different ones give them enough at different times to help put them in the finals. So, what does this do about LeBron going to the next level of saying, okay, even if he loses this finals, his best chances is still, can he get everybody together somewhere else? Or is it just, I'm just going to keep trying to get to the finals with Cleveland to see what I can do?
LeBron James is a shrewd businessman and understands and sees opportunity and potential for growth. That's what he's got to look for, because there's not really a lot of room for growth in this cap-strapped Cavaliers team.
Yeah, there's also not a lot of room for growth for the Rockets that are also going to have some huge cap difficulties. Now, we were all watching the NBA last night, but the game of the night, The Vegas Golden Knights defeated the Washington No Capital 6-4. I threw that shade in there to take a 1-0 series lead in the Stanley Cup Final in a game that was so much fun to watch.
It was a ball, including the pregame, and I know Vegas does that, but I haven't seen a lot of pre-games, for the Golden Knights this year. I'm not going to lie. So when I saw this one, because it started before the basketball game, we were flipping back and forth. What a Vegas show. I heard so many people ripping it. I thought, man, this is Vegas. That's what they do, man. They put on some wacky show before, and they did. And then only the game produced the first game in Cup history that featured 4 lead changes. Most goals scored in Game 1 of a Cup final since 2010. There were 10 goals last night. And 20 different players had a point, 10 on each team. So that was history last night as the Golden Knights continue to make history.
We heard all about the goalies going into this game, and then 10 goals later we realized, all right, these teams can play a little offense too. And I guess Fitz and I talked about this yesterday, and Fitz rightly pointed out that it felt like a mistake to have this game on the same night as an NBA Game 7 in the conference finals, but luckily you did have it starting earlier, so you did have a lot of people, to your point, very casual fans, introduced to, oh man, this is what Vegas is doing in their pregame. You get all of the spectacle, the great things about your sport, broadcast to a hopefully broader audience, and this time kind of bring people in.
Yeah, never more than a 2-goal lead until the end, the empty netter to make it 2 goals. It was back and forth. It was fantastic game.
Well, and that pregame hype reminded me a lot of Vegas's take on what Nashville does, and I loved it. I loved everything about it.
So wait, you're saying Vegas is stealing from Nashville in a show?
No,
that's what you're saying.
I'm saying
just
that,
say it.
No, I'm saying that Vegas is doing the smart business thing by analyzing what works around the league and borrowing some of it and making it their own. They've definitely done that down there. It's part of what makes it fun.
By the way, anybody thinking Tom Wilson is going to miss some games? Jonathan Marchessault, he hits him late. That was the interesting one. They no penalty call. The refs get together. Then they give him a penalty. Marchessault has to leave the ice for a bit. And Wilson's been suspended, 3 games this postseason?
So far in the playoffs.
In the playoffs, so you wonder if they're gonna lose him or not for a game. And I have no idea, but we'll see.
Even he says that he's not sure, but it seems like there's got to be a statement made. That one thing you know about hockey is if he doesn't get suspended, they'll take their own justice somewhere. I'm getting there. Look at that. I'm out. Justin Verlander allowed 1 earned run in 6 2/3 innings pitched in a 5-1 Houston Astros win over the New York Yankees.
Yeah, obviously he's owned the Yankees since he's come to the Astros. He's allowed just 2 runs in 30 2/3 inning and 4 straight starts against the Yankees. And you sit there and you look at that matchup and that pitching staff. 4 of the top 5 ERAs in all of baseball or 3 of the top 4, I should say, are Astros. Charlie Morton's up next against the Yankees. He's 7-0 this year. He's 3rd in the league with just over a 2 ERA. So they got the staff going on right now, and Verlander's doing Verlander things.
I enjoyed yesterday as much as anything else in sports. I always said if I could view all of baseball through the lens of Tim Kurkjian, I would be a much bigger baseball fan. Hearing him gush over the career renaissance, and not necessarily renaissance, but just the market improvement that we've seen from Justin Verlander since he came over to this Astros team, talked about sharpening his cutter and all these different things. Timmy's joy is so infectious, but it is a reminder that what Justin Verlander has done since he was acquired there in last season has been remarkable, and he is on pace leading a number of categories right now. ERA against, batting average against, ERA, all these different things, crushing it.
Verlander or Timmy's joy is only matched by the love I have for Yankees fans and their passion as they booed him as he was leaving.
Yeah, how about it? I
love that. Yeah. They're just they're booing him, telling me he absolutely stinks after a gem of a game. That is spectacular. And don't want to not get in some tennis news. Serena Williams faces Kristina Pliskova in her first match of the French Open today. And thank you so much for giving me that name to try and read at 6:10 in the morning. I think I got there, though.
This is, Serena Williams, she is now ranked, she's missed 496 days since her last time around. She's ranked 451st in the world. And let's talk something we have no business talking about, and that's pregnancies.
Oh, boy.
Due to the way she's ranked 451, there have been 3 women ranked outside the top 100 win a major since the rankings were introduced in 1975. The most recent, Kim Clijsters, won the U.S. Open in 2009 when she was unranked after giving birth to her first child the previous year. And then, how about this? Serena needs to win one more major to match Margaret Court on the all-time women's major singles list. Court won the last 3 major titles of her career after giving birth to her first child. So anybody betting against Serena coming back and be able to do well?
Seems like a pretty surefire bet. Like you said, it just blows my mind. I can't even quantify.
We can't.
How difficult that has to be. All of the changes that you go through in that. Again, we've got a really qualified panel up here to discuss the post-pregnancy Serena career. Going to stop myself while I'm ahead.
You're the only one that's even had to deal with that life issue. Like the rest of us, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, my wife went through it 3 times. I didn't really see what was so hard about it. But, that's just me. Wow. See, that's the one thing you just can't do in a serious tone, any guy about women and birthing. It's just not going to end well.
All right, and that gets you caught up with what's trending. I'm just going to take us right out of that. Golic and Wingo presented by Progressive Insurance. Protecting your small business is a big deal. Cover what you've worked so hard for. Visit progressivecommercial.com. We're efforting Michael Wilbon as we speak.
Airport going through security. That's how it works.
Yeah, but
TSA.
Yeah.
God.
The alarming part to me, and I don't want to sound like over the top with this, but realistically, what we learned last night is that the Warriors can give it their all for like a quarter and a half and still beat the second best team in the NBA.
You're right, and they seem to say, okay, in the third quarter we need to turn this thing on, as they've done it just about the entire postseason. But I was impressed with Houston early on, crashing the boards. The offensive rebounds that they were getting, in the paint that they were getting, the layups that they were getting. They were really getting it for a team that ended up shooting 44 threes, and as we mentioned, missed 27 in a row. I mean, they outscored the Warriors, 56-28 in the paint. I mean, they were getting in the paint. That's where they were living and doing their work. But when you can't make it up for the threes, and it's Golden State who starts hitting those threes in the second half, that's obviously the math doesn't work in your favor. So, and I know we're going to hear it. I get it. If Chris Paul played, maybe they would have won. That gets old to me quick. It really does. If Randall Cunningham was my quarterback in 1991, we'd have gone to the Super Bowl. But he wasn't. He got hurt in game 1 and he was gone. You can't, as an athlete, you just can't, where you have to put that out of your mind. Andre Iguodala is out. How many people said, he's out if he doesn't come back, Golden State's losing this series? Well, they won this series. I mean, players get hurt. Attrition is part of it. It's a shame, but it's the way it is, and you can't worry about it.
Yeah, they can't worry about it, but we can. Like, we got cheated out of what was the rightful end of this series by seeing that, and I understand that this is the part of sports. We never really see teams whole, and if we do see teams whole at the end of seasons, they're usually holding up trophies, because that's one of the hardest things to do in sports is be healthy for an entire season. But it was unfortunate to see that because, listen, missing Iguodala, sure, he was he was a paper finals MVP in 2016 on a team that was clearly led by Steph Curry, but in all seriousness, we knew that was going to be a drop in the bucket comparatively.
Well, I think the other part of it is whenever you have this conversation of what would it be like if Chris Paul had played, you also have to acknowledge that the Warriors would have approached this game completely different. I mean, I'll go back to, they came out of this game, a couple of quick fouls in the first minute. They did not look good. They didn't look like they were really in it. Steve Kerr at the end of the first quarter in the interview between
sassy.
I mean, they were angry. They were a team that looked sort of mentally checked out. If Chris Paul's in Game 7, I don't think they look that way. So we're sitting here saying, but look at how much better the Rockets would be with Chris Paul, without some acknowledgement that, I don't know, maybe the Warriors approach that game differently if they're playing a full deck against the Rockets. It's the other piece of this.
Maybe the Rockets approach it differently too, because to your point, the effort was endearing in the first half.
Yeah, it was.
But it was unsustainable. Golden State, LeBron James, these teams that have been through these situations understand it. What do? They measure effort. They time effort. They understand where to take gaps. Houston was max effort the whole first half. And what did all those guys echo? They kind of ran out of gas in the second half, and you saw it across the board.
And you're right. And they were up at 1.15 in the first half. And you had to be thinking, man, lay it on them, step on the gas. But they didn't. They got that Eric Gordon coast-to-coast layup at the buzzer to put them up 11. I thought they were going to go in 9, up 11. And there still had to be that, because we know what Golden State can do in the third quarter, which is exactly what they did.
Which is why Draymond Green said after the game when he joined SVP, the Warriors were never really that worried.
There was never really a level of concern. We knew how bad we were playing on both sides of the basketball. especially the offensive side of the ball in the first half. And, we said at halftime, hey, man, we're down 11 points. We can cover that in 2 minutes. But we have to get our heads in the game, move the basketball, stop turning it over. And once we did that, start that third quarter, the complete game changed, turned in our favor, and we never let up from there.
The Warriors took the lead in the third quarter, held on to win Game 7. Protecting the lead, brought to you by ADT. Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. Visit ADT.com to learn more. And that's I think the third quarter piece of it, Mike, we talked about, Junior and I talked a little bit about it yesterday. You know what's coming. I mean, You've been on the field before. You've played. When you're sitting there and you know what your guy's opponent's going to do,
and you can't stop it.
You can't stop it. That's got to be the most demoralizing thing.
It's a damning thing. You can't stop it. You don't know. You sit there and you make their adjustments. You know what's coming. It's true in any sport. If a team shows, what they can do at a certain period, you prepare for it, whether it's football, baseball, bat, whatever it is. If you know something about someone, you game plan for it. But when they do it anyway, it makes it a pretty damning experience.
And that's the hilarious part about the Warriors is you know exactly who it's going to come from. Like last night wasn't the Klay Thompson Game 6. Last night was Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, the 3 MVPs between 2 players going out and drubbing you in the second half. You knew exactly. It wasn't Houston on the other side needed performances from Clint Capella and PJ Tucker and all these other side guys because Chris Paul was out. You knew exactly where it was coming from and couldn't stop
Capella gave us a double bicep pose at one point. You always love to see that.
Basketball players are bad at flexing.
Yeah, they really
None of them flex right. They all do the weird,
really
limp
weird
noodle
double
arm
bicep.
thing. Just give them.
I agree.
No,
don't do it. Don't try.
I thought it was
the fiddle flex.
I thought I was going to be the smartest man in the room because I said yesterday Capella had to have a big night. It looked like he was going to have one.
Yeah.
I thought I'd be able to come in and gloat. Not so much. The Rockets pushed the Warriors to the brink, and after the game, there was some disagreement in their own backcourt. We'll get into that.
At Trex, we know there's a place for wood in your backyard. We recommend the fire pit. But when it comes down to choosing the right material for your next deck, look no further than the superior beauty and durability of the world's #1 premium decking brand. Trex delivers the look of wood without all of the work and the worry, and it's made from 95% recycled materials, which makes it the right choice for your backyard 100% of the time. To learn how to make Trex your next deck, visit Trex.com to order samples.
Hey guys, this is Mike Golic.
And this is Trey Wingo.
You ever wish you could wake up early in the morning and have donuts with your dad and us?
For Father's Day this year, you can. We're teaming up with Sport Clips Haircuts for a Dad's Day getaway. An all-expense-paid trip to ESPN, including a day spent with us on the show.
Plus, my son Junior, it is for Father's Day, isn't it?
Register for your chance to win online at sportclips.com/ESPN and make priceless memories.
No purchase necessary. See rules at sportclips.com/ESPN. U.S. only. Age 18 and up and 6/15/18.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic and Mike Golic Jr. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. The backcourt of Houston can't agree on this, but you've already come out emphatically this morning, Mike. You made a comment earlier about the 1991 season.
Well, I mean, listen, I when we talk about injured players, and I get it was different. In 1991 when Randall Cunningham got hurt, a lot of people thought that was our team that could have been a Super Bowl team. That was the beginning of the season, kind of like Gordon Hayward going out in the first game. Randall did. So it's not apples to apples completely. But the bottom line is you just keep playing. I mean, Kyrie is out for the playoffs. Look what the Celtics do. The Celtics are one game from still going to the NBA Finals. Kevin Love is out. He misses the last game, and they still win. So injuries happen, and I get it. And everybody's going to talk about what if. At some point, I just get tired of the what if. There's no what if. I mean, we can't sit there and say just add Chris Paul and everything would have been different. We don't know what the reaction would have been or how Golden State would have reacted to that with Chris Paul out there. So it's very easy to say, but really difficult to say, okay, would have completely changed the outcome.
Yeah, but the closer you get to it, the harder it is to reconcile. We could say that at the beginning of the season if we had lost and say, well, man, I could have won a national championship in 2012, but then you lose it at the end. There's a lot more what ifs when you lose it in the game. So for them to lose Chris Paul right before this, and for Chris Paul personally, how crushing this has to be after his career storyline and that narrative to now get here. But for his teammates, there has to be in that moment, that's a moment of real honesty. It's like, We were this close. We had this team on the ropes, and we knew one of our guys wasn't out there.
Listen, that's why I said my comparison isn't really apples to apples, but it's still that this happens. And as you said, and you're correct, you get to an area where everybody is healthy and everybody's playing all the time, you're usually the one holding up the trophy.
Well, let's hear from a couple of the guys, because Eric Gordon last night, the Rockets guard, had a moment of refreshing honesty.
It's definitely tough because when everybody counted us out before the series started, we knew we had a chip on our shoulder to win this series, and it sucks because you could win this series if we just had one more playmaker, just than Chris. If he was out there, we would have been playing on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I get it because you're in the immediacy of it. I do understand that. And Gordon came in, played well with 23 points. Again, that coast-to-coast drive at the end of the half. But, he was part of the 0 for 27. He went 2 for 12 from the game in three-point land. I get it. I get it when it's that close. You think if we have our guy that we are going to win this game.
And I understand from your perspective, we usually don't say that kind of stuff after, but I appreciate him. He's up there just kind of wearing it at that point. It's a raw time. It's a frustrating time.
I get that, but I also kind of like James Harden because I think he's right when he was asked about CP3's absence.
We don't even think about that. We had an opportunity tonight in last game without Chris. Obviously, he's a big part of what, why we're here, but we had opportunities, especially in that first half. Both games.
I mean, I think he's at some point you missed 27 straight threes.
Well, see, yeah.
Just missed 24 straight threes, and this game's totally different.
I guess that's the thing. It's not like they got blown out from the tip. Where it's like, oh my God, we don't have our guy. We're getting rid of a 15-point lead in the first half. I mean, so I do understand it to your point because of the immediacy of it. You have it, you're rolling along, then boom, you're looking back and you're like, wait a minute, he's grabbing his hamstring. Which let me just say, in any sport, is never good.
No.
It's never good, and you're never back when you think you're going to be back, by the way.
Jaylen Brown earlier this postseason was as surprising as any return as we saw. You remember the first dunk he went up for? Watching him even kind of go,
test it.
Oh, okay, this still works apparently, which is amazing. All I'd say for these two quotes, consider the source. Eric Gordon's a role player. Eric Gordon's allowed to say these things because at the end of the day, he is to some extent reliant on those stars. That's the world that you live in. James Harden, if he had said anything even remotely close to that, could you imagine the tarring and feathering that would have gone on in the streets of sports talk radio today?
All fair points. I get the hamstring thing. I think, mine were a little tight after my caddy training. Still waiting on that golf.
Yeah, you keep on waiting.
You missed your chance to shoot your shot yesterday while he was gone. You're done now.
You have no power. You have no power, Mike. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic Jr. At some point, I'm not trying to be flippant about the way they lost. At some point, though, when you have a historic poor shooting night, you can blame Chris Paul all you want. You can blame anything you want. At some point, you got to make the shots. Afterwards, they were throwing shots at Mike D'Antoni about his system and it not working, and this is what Coach said.
No, because the other team's doing it. It would be different if they were. No, not at all. No, that's what you do. That's where the game's going. Now, I lost comments that, we should have made some more, but, hey, no, I don't lose comments that. No, we got the right formula. It's got to execute it. We got to do it a little bit better, and it'd be nice if they would help out a little bit, but it seems like they're not. So we'll get better.
Listen, I've been covering him for a long time, back to his Phoenix Suns days, when we were saying, wait, what he's doing is not going to work. You're all offense, you're playing no defense, it's not going to work. But now he's right. This is where the game is going. They got within one game of going to the finals, and to everybody's point, they lost one of their better players in Chris Paul right before that. This is the system right now, but the thing about it is you live with it, and they lived with it very well, but you can die with it. Now, this was such an extreme going 0 for 27, but that's what it's going to take. It takes a cold night, especially when the other team is hitting them, because they were destroying it in the paint. But when you're trading twos for threes, the math isn't going to work your way. The way they win, it didn't work for them last night, and unfortunately, it was the most important game of the season.
It didn't. You wonder if there's some adjustment to be made amidst that, because in the fourth quarter, when they started to get it back to 6-7 points, back to something that looked manageable, that looked like they might be able to reach out and grab Golden State still, They did it by getting layups. They did it by getting points back in the paint. And you wonder if that's something that when you see, all right, we have gotten into this unbelievable rut, to just climb your way out a little bit with something like that, to just help break up the monotony some by stringing together some consistent possessions there instead of just pounding away at the wall that wasn't going to break.
I think there's a sort of a coaching element here. We've seen it now 2 consecutive nights, and I'm not being flippant about it, but 2 consecutive nights where everybody, their answer was, we'll just keep shooting.
Yeah.
Shooters got to shoot should be suspended as a phrase allowed to be used anywhere for the next year. But coaches are going to sit down and they're going to figure out what to do. What's your plan B? Because we've seen 2 teams 2 nights in a row that didn't have a plan B and no way to win.
And sometimes you just shoot poorly. Like we saw in the Celtics and Cavs game, and you shot poorly here. But what was all going through our minds with, what was it, 7-something to go in the first period? Klay Thompson's walking off the court with 3 fouls, and you're going, wait a minute, this is a guy they want guarding on Harden, and he's sitting on the bench. You're thinking for the rest of the half, but he did come back in the second quarter. But I really thought that was going to be a huge turning point. And oh, by the way, the Rockets did get up to a 15-point lead.
You're listening to Golic and Wingo. All of our phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. That is Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Coming up, they tell us to play the hits in radio, and we'll play one for you next.
To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
I am Jason Fitz, of course, with the band Perry for so many years, our musical expert here. I could listen, the way they mix that, I could be a star, correct?
So it's Golic and Wingo. All of our guests are on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
Wow.
We could talk about that at the golf outing. We could talk about your snacks if you want. Maybe build you some.
We'll be doing it by a phone call to you then.
That's perfect.
Was that better production value than Le'Veon Bell's track?
I was going to say, you are way past Le'Veon Bell status. So if anybody in the world could figure out how we could do a battle rap between you and Le'Veon Bell, I would give $2 American cash to see that. And that's a lot.
$2 American cash.
So we'll get back to the NBA conversation in just a second. But there was another game last night, and you guys have figured out from my yelling and screaming about it, I'm obviously hockey guy around here. But last night's game was spectacular.
It was.
The Golden Knights take game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. But it wasn't just the game. Like any good game, it gave a ton of goals, a ton of offense, because everybody loves that, but also a little bit of controversy. I want you to hear this. I absolutely could not love this call any more than I do on a controversial hit in the third period.
Puck comes out in front. Save Holtby. They thought it went in. Puck is back out to the neutral zone. Play is stopped because Marchessault went down in the neutral zone. McNabb then goes after the Capital.
Yeah, a very late hit. A very, very late hit from Tom Wilson, who has been a cheap shot artist, already got 3 games in this playoffs. He hits Marchessault late and from behind.
A very, very late hit, according to Fox Sports 98.9 on the fantastic call. But it was a bit of a controversial moment. The referees had to huddle up afterwards and then decide, because initially it wasn't called a penalty in the immediacy of the moment.
Everybody's waiting for a major, and he just got, an interference call?
Right, and then there was another penalty at the same time. So they did offsetting penalties. There was no power play that came out of it. But the refs had to huddle up to figure out where to go with it. And even more significantly, Marchessault has been a big part of this team. He had to immediately go to the dark room. That's part of concussion protocol. A trainer came from off ice and said, hey, and you could see the surprise on his face. He was sort of saying, no, I'm good. And all of a sudden, he's taken off the ice. What at the time was obviously a very close game. That could have changed the outcome of the game. So we can question the hit all day long. It could have truly impacted the entire series.
It could have, and if it had been in football, it would have launched a state investigation, and we would have been clamoring for Tom Wilson's arrest off that hit. That screamed every bit of the defenseless receiver type rule in that situation. It was away from the puck. He wasn't looking, and he got hit. It wasn't high enough to be any sort of helmet hit like we'd seen earlier in this playoff run from Tom Wilson, but still enough to where it absolutely should warrant a penalty. And I have to imagine is going to get some sort of response from the league office.
Well, Tom Wilson, as you heard earlier, earlier, notorious cheap shot artist, however they called him there. Tom Wilson does have a bit of a reputation. He has faced a suspension already in the playoffs. He was asked afterwards about the hit. This is what he said.
I felt like I delivered it in good time. I think he let up a little bit because he wasn't aware I was there, and I finished him through his body. So I think he might have been a little bit surprised by it, but it wasn't an aggressive hit. I think he looked fine at the end when he was yelling at me from the bench and wooing. So just a hockey play.
You worried you can hear from the league?
I don't know these days. So it's playoff hockey. There's going to be big hits. It's a contact sport, so that's what I saw.
I just the talk back and forth isn't in the beginning of that quote, which wasn't on there. He said Wilson's take. He said he'd probably say, talking about Marchessault, he'd probably say he shouldn't be admiring his pass. I'm just finishing my check. I haven't slowed down. I mean that was and Marchessault said I saw the hit. I remember everything. He said. He went through concussion protocol. He did return to the game. It was a late hit. I don't really need to talk more about it. I think the league will take care of it. A lot of the Golden Knight players were talking about it, saying it was a dirty hit. Coaching staff as well. It will be interesting because he has missed 3 games if they come down on him again. Again, no penalty called. Then thought it might be a major, but it was just interference, which is offset by another penalty. Do you think he'll miss time? Do you think they'll jump in because of the rep? In the Stanley Cup Finals.
That's the only thing I can think of, because normally I'd say in this stage you wouldn't be removing guys like that from the ice, but because he's got a reputation and because it also is, it'll be interesting if the rules of it's a different time apply to hockey, because when you have something like this happen on a big stage, I said there's a reason this would have been treated with very sensitive gloves in the world of football, because right now we're so sensitive to these big hits. I don't know if we've had that trickle down to hockey.
Is there in some way, is this similar to Draymond Green in the 2016 NBA Finals? Had a reputation. It made everybody blow up. There feels like for Tom Wilson there's a bit of a reputation here, so maybe they overreact because
Well, you know what? But if you have a reputation, then
you earned it.
That's exactly right. No one's going to sit there and feel sorry. If it's a first timer, you may not, but if it's a third or fourth timer and you do, that's on you. And it was a late hit. I mean, we didn't even talk about the hit. We all agree it was a late hit. It wasn't that leaving his skate's shoulder to the jaw that we saw against Pittsburgh, but it definitely was a late hit, no doubt about that, and should have been penalized for it. And if you have a rep, you've effectively earned that rep. So I don't think they can sit there and complain if they sit him a game.
I really want one effective policy change. If we're going to let a trainer come out and tell a guy he has to come off the ice after an illegal hit, whoever hit him should have to come off the ice for the equal amount of time. That way there's no advantage. I
don't agree with that. I mean, and we're doing that in sports now. As we're going to talk about this more, because in football the spotter can take you off the field as well. I'm not a big believer in that. How you get hurt, you should then be punished. We can talk more about that, but we're not on the same page on that.
Well, that's because I'm right and you're wrong. That's the way that works, right? We'll continue that conversation, obviously. But coming up next, isn't winning supposed to be fun? We'll answer that question next up. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio, ESPN News.
Every deck is made for standing on, but there's only one that's always had a way of standing out. So if you're looking to bring more style, comfort, and creativity to your life outdoors, call on the brand that's known for making the most in outdoor living. From decking, railing, and lighting to furniture, fencing, and framing, at Trex, we're engineering what's next in outdoor living. To learn more about all of the outdoor solutions Trex has to offer, call 1-800-289-TREX or visit Trex.com. That's TREX.com.
To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
Obsessed with how do we beat the Warriors.
I love the mindset. You're obsessed with us, that's fine. Be careful what you wish for.
Triggers a deep 2 and hits. Durant has 30. Curry on the other end. Buries a triple. Beats Thompson. Gets off a 3 and knocks it home. 4, 3, 2, 1. Took 7 games, but the defending champion, Golden State Warriors, still best in the West.
Cleveland is lurking in the finals again. Are you ready for LeBron?
If you think you're frustrated by Golden State Cleveland 4, imagine how you feel if you play for the Rockets. They had 1 goal all year, And despite giving us a heck of a series, they didn't get that goal. Despite getting us to 7 games, it's over for Houston. It's gone. It's done. And now they have to regroup and figure out how to continue this sort of run and make it something better.
Stock down for obsession this year. Didn't work for the Houston Rockets openly professing their obsession with beating the Warriors. Didn't work for the Pittsburgh Steelers openly professing their obsession for beating the New England Patriots. We might just need to keep intentions to ourselves at this point. Save it for the yoga mat.
In all honesty, do you have a problem with that? Now, I get it in football, it's like the looking ahead, but in basketball, they were talking about the end goal, the end game of basically what everybody in the league is talking about is if you're going to win a championship, you're going to have to beat Golden State. Now, it's not like, I understand New England has been unbelievably great as well, so they have to be lurking in your mind as well. But I don't have a problem, with Houston thinking that because every other team is thinking that as well.
No,
he just said it, and the fact that we all have to beat Golden State if we want to win an NBA title.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I have no problem with setting your goals out there for the world to hear. That's exactly what they did. Then when you don't meet them, then you have to sit there and say, now what? That's going to be a difficult question.
But I'll tell you what, to me, the now what isn't that awful, is it? Because you went to 7 games and you had your second best player out of the game. So while the injury talk, it happens and you have to play without people at times, there is the thought of, okay, wait, we were right there and our second best player wasn't playing. How much tinkering is going to be done?
As long as you get Chris Paul to sign back as a free agent this summer, you're in that place. You're right. And that's what you could, in all of this with the super team formations, with Golden State and the stress they've put on the league, it could end up producing teams that stay together longer once you get them close. Once you get Bostons and Philadelphias and Houstons that understand their proximity to the top, you could get teams staying together longer in a free agency area than we're used to.
But the Rockets are going to have to make a very expensive decision on Chris Paul as he is eligible for the Supermax. They could be looking at a 5-year deal. At the end of that deal, he'd be 37 years old.
Yep.
So are they willing to mortgage the future and pay him a ton of money for the run that they're in right now? Would only make sense if they believe wholeheartedly with Chris Paul they could have beaten the Warriors. That's a very difficult trick to try and figure out. That's the tough part for Houston.
Where would you guys be? You're running the Houston Rockets right now. You just saw this team, if you can keep them together, and we'll get all the information about it again, but that's one of the big things. The max you give a guy, that max deal is going to be 37 at the end of it, what you're going to be paying him. If you can keep this team together, would you do it? Would you tinker with it? Would you try and make changes? You were a game away from going to the finals, of which you would have been favored in the finals against Cleveland, and you lost your second best player for the last couple games of this series. How good would you feel going into the offseason if you could stand pat?
Well, I wouldn't touch it, but it's can you stand pat? And that's what I'm interested in because Golden State's been able to stand pat because you've got guys constantly coming out saying, I'm willing to take less so so-and-so can get more. I'm willing to take less because I want to stick with this team and continue to win. That's uncommon. It's uncommon when New England does it in football, and it's certainly uncommon in the NBA now with Golden State.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's a real opportunity out there for the Rockets because of where they are salary cap to get substantially better without Chris Paul. I think they're sort of in the situation they're in. So, yeah, I think you put all your eggs in and you try and hope that next year you don't miss 27 straight threes in a game 7. I mean, that's I'm going to continue to say they had the looks, they had the opportunity, they just didn't maximize it. We're going to get you caught up on a little bit of what's trending. Like we're talking about, Golden State erases a 15-point deficit. They beat the Houston Rockets 101-92 in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals.
So the shooting was horrible early on by both teams in this game, clanking everything. Houston kept getting, we'll talk about padding your stats, unfortunately, except the shooting percentage. They kept getting offensive rebounds in this one and then missing shots off that, especially early on. And then, I'm telling you, gang, when Klay Thompson walked to the bench with 7 minutes to go in the first quarter with 3 fouls, I thought, this is the evening out factor for Chris Paul. Because you didn't think you were going to see him the rest of the half, and then he comes in the second quarter and ends up, having a decent game with 19 points. But they had their chances. They had a 15-point lead, and you know what Golden State is in the third quarter, and Golden State was it in the third quarter, and Houston couldn't do anything about it.
Is there a surer bet in sports right now than the third quarter Golden State Warriors? Maybe the Astros pitching? Things you can count on consistently. I mean, you can set your clock to this. We sat there, and the first half was less entertaining for me because I said none of this matters until I see them weather this third quarter storm, and when they couldn't, I was justified.
For the first couple of minutes of the third quarter, too, I thought, you know what? maybe Golden State isn't going to get hot. And then all of a sudden, in what felt like a matter of seconds before you know it, Curry got a stroke.
That was it.
Once he started hitting, it was done.
Put a number to it. The Warriors outscored the Rockets by 68 in the third quarter in this series. They outscored their opponents by 130 points in the third quarter in the postseason. So everybody knows it's coming.
Fantastic little nugget from Brett. The odds of the Rockets missing 27 straight, 1 in 112,000. That's low. 1 in 112,000. So
that's better odds though than you going on our golf trip.
Oh, that's throwing some kind of shade there. Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals is what everybody's talking about, and that's brought to you by Lowe's. Pros in the know start with Lowe's. Go to lowesforpros.com for details. You mentioned the only other sure bet, Astros pitching. Justin Verlander allowed 1 earned run in 6 2/3 innings pitched in a 5-1 Houston Astros win over the New York Yankees.
Since joining the Astros, Verlander has allowed just 2 runs in 30 2/3 innings in his 4 starts against the Yankees. A couple of guys, Aaron Judge 0 for 13, Gary Sanchez 2 for 13, hitting against Verlander. And oh, by the way, they get Charlie Morton now who's 7-0 and has the 3rd best ERA in all of baseball. In fact, they have 3 of the 4 top ERAs in all of baseball. I mean, they are just so darn good, from the pitch. And Verlander, since he's gotten the Astros, has been incredible.
Yeah, Judge and Sanchez a combined, .077 hitting against Verlander in their careers right now. Yeah. So this has been that team. This has been that consistent force for them in the season. The defending champions who felt slighted coming into the year when everyone seemed to overlook them, constantly reminding you.
It's the Yankees show now, yeah.
Yeah, oh really?
You just mentioned how key it is to stay healthy. If this pitching rotation for the Astros stays healthy, it's going to be tough to beat. They've got 4 guys viably in their pitching rotation. Good luck beating that in a playoff series. So if they can stay healthy, the Astros are reminding us that they are in charge.
And you know who's looking at that saying that could have been us? You look at the lowest ERAs in baseball. Justin Verlander's at 1.11, and 3rd is Charlie Morton at 2.04. Garrett Cole is 4th at 2.05. Jacob deGrom is 2nd at 152. You got to be thinking Met fans going, that could have been us. Our rotation was what we had. They're all doing what we thought we were going to do until all our guys started falling apart.
Yeah, we talk about from sure things to what might have been. Is there any greater one, any greater failed group than that Mets pitching rotation? Chock full of aces, right on the cusp of a World Series, and ever since then it's been nothing but bedwetting.
They should just play a video of the games like with what might have been underneath it, little like sappy music.
I will remember.
Okay, and that's the cue to get to the craziness.
Let's
all right,
do it.
The parading of the lacrosse stick over there is because Mike Golic Jr. is having a happy day. Yale managed to take down a powerhouse in Duke, topping the Blue Devils 13-11 at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough. They are your national champion. This is what Coach Andy Shay sounded like after the game.
1883 was the last time. National champs, dude. Sorry. It's okay, man. You're allowed to. Oh you're allowed to do that. Sorry. You don't have to apologize.
I just looked over the shoulder and saw the score.
You are national champs.
Sorry.
National champs, dude!
Andy Shay going to be joining us at 7:30. We'll see if he'll put hands on anyone in the building here. Paul Carcaterra, lucky to escape with his life.
Do we think he has a voice left? That's going to be the interesting thing.
Can't possibly. Yeah. What a great game, though. 13-11 against Duke, by the way. In the last 9 seasons, you talk about dynasties in modern lacrosse, Duke or Maryland represented in the last 9 national championships. It's just been a remarkable run for those 2 teams, but this is our 4th first-time national champion in the last decade here. For the Ivies, it's their first national title since 2001 Princeton. And yesterday for this Duke team for this Yale team who's going to have a Tualatin winner, who has the tournament MOP.
I'm sorry.
Just a stellar performance.
A what winner?
Tualatin.
Yes, please, go on.
It's for those of you who are new to the sport, college lacrosse's Heisman Trophy, the Tualatin, which, by the way, NBA MVP is voted on after the NCAA tournament. So if you're looking for the blueprint for how it can be, check out college lacrosse.
Oh, there you go. As far as now, you mentioned their first championship, its first NCAA championship. They claimed a lacrosse national title back in 1883. That was before the NCAA existed. So and I don't think any of these guys were born then, so none of them remember it. But what a great win. That was supposed to be a joke. I guess didn't go over
it was
very well.
It was funny. It was like chuckle.
They jump out to a 3-zip lead. At one point, they're winning 10-5, and I thought they're just going to run away with this. Duke did make a nice comeback. It's 13-11, under a minute to go, and Duke's got a man-up situation. They couldn't take advantage of it at all. Thought they were going to score there, come down to that last face-off, and see if they could have tied it up, but Yale was having none of it.
By the way, Ben Reeves, your incumbent, likely Tewaaraton winner, 1 goal, 3 assists yesterday, a relatively quiet day. It was Matt Gaudette who had the big performance again yesterday. 10 goals on championship weekend for him en route to that tournament most outstanding player.
That gets you caught up with what's trending. We got out.
Yeah, we did.
But I will tell you, it's funny. Yesterday I was talking to a buddy at ESPN. And he was like, I never would have imagined you a hockey nut, because he just had no idea. And so he's like, I never would have imagined that you're a big hockey guy. I never would have imagined Mike Golic Jr. the passion with which, we get packets of information. They want to give us info so we can read and we can study and we can know what we're talking about. And Golic just throws those in the air and says, no, I write information on lacrosse. That's where he is on.
Listen, played lacrosse growing up around here. My college roommate, Sean Rogers, was a star for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish lacrosse team back in the day. We had our fair share of national championship heartbreak, so I always look at championship weekend fondly, but with a little bit of malice in there.
You and Stugotto want to be calling some games, don't you?
I'm telling you, I am going to start openly petitioning ESPN here next year. You need me as a part of the lacrosse coverage. I don't care if it's a fanalist, whatever you want to call me, because I understand I don't bring the requisite expertise of a former player to the booth like a lot of our great guys, but I feel like I can offer something. I will make up for it in effort and enthusiasm. I will rip top cheddar. I will tickle twine. High bouncers for days. Let's do this.
There you go. See, you weren't brought up around lacrosse, were you?
I lived in Maryland for a few years, and it was big there, but I just never...
See, we never were. Now, moving around playing football, it wasn't big. And then we got here to the East Coast when I started working at ESPN, and the boys were played baseball during that time of the season, and we got introduced to lacrosse, and they never picked up a bat again, and they picked up the lacrosse stick. I mean, Jake was bigger than everybody and faster than everybody, so he ended up hitting him and ended up in the penalty box. Mike played defense, and it was so much fun to watch, so much so that my daughter Sydney wanted to play it as well. From watching her brothers, she went to the first practice in grade school to go play for the team, and she came home saying, I don't want to do this anymore. She kept knocking everybody down like the boys would do, and you can't do that in girls lacrosse. It's like girls lacrosse is completely different than men's lacrosse, and she kept hitting everybody, and they kept saying, you can't do that. She's like, well, then I don't want to play.
By the way, congratulations to James Madison. The women's lacrosse Division I national championships beat Boston College over the weekend. Championship weekend in lacrosse.
Fantastic.
It's a great event in and of itself. It was in at Gillette and Foxborough this year. They turn it into a great weekend, great for the young kids getting involved in the game. So if you haven't been, if you are a young lacrosse player or parent, do everything you can to try and get your son or daughter to that weekend. Cool. It's awesome for the game.
If we start a pickup lacrosse league here at ESPN, can I play on the Golic and Wingo team?
Man, you'd be a sub.
We'd really have to hide you somewhere and kind of get you out of that situation.
I'd be a face-off guy. I hear those guys get good
little
work.
Fogo action?
Face-off and then run off the field.
Fogo. I'm learning that term. That's my new role. So speaking of Foxborough, Foxborough can't find its way out of the news right now, even from guys that don't play there anymore. Cassius Marsh said he hated being with the Pats. That's the headline. You're listening to Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey. Mike Golic Jr. We're presented by Progressive Insurance, and we're presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Getting a quote easier than ever. So the quote is, they don't have fun there. 49ers defensive end Cassius Marsh said he hated playing for the 49ers and won't apologize for it. Basically came out, laid it all on the line, and said, darn it, it's just not fun to be around there.
He said they don't have fun there. There's nothing fun about it. There's nothing happy about it. I didn't enjoy any of my time there. You know what I'm saying? It made me, for the first time in my life, think about not playing football because I hated it so much. He said his quote, I confronted Bill Belichick about all the things that were going on. I won't go into detail, but it was BS things that they were doing. It just wasn't fun. I'd imagine those confrontations were short, don't you think?
Yeah, I can't imagine Bill Belichick really entertained. There was probably a lot of, who are you again?
Now, and they traded for him in September from Seattle, and they ended up waiving him in November. It didn't really turn out for him. He went to San Francisco. I think he got a couple of sacks in the last 6 games and signed a 2-year, $7.7 million extension. But this whole thing about hating the game, Listen, you go through a little bit of that as in any sports during a season.
But when you get to these kind of coaches, because not all coaches are created equal in this, I understand what he's talking about, because he can be right in this. There can be nothing fun about this depending on who you are and depending on what your lot in life is. I mean, hell, we see Tom Brady bristling at this. We see Rob Gronkowski, some of the greatest at their position. So you can imagine being an underling in an organization that doesn't necessarily value all of its pieces. You are very replaceable there, not exactly feeling loved and welcomed in that situation or really liking it all that much.
Let me ask you guys this. When you've traded for somebody, a 5th and a 7th round pick, all right, to acquire them, and you bring them into your locker room and your Belichick, are you tougher on that guy? Is there a different level of expectation when he walks in the door because you gave up some level of equity for him? I mean, is there some sort of break him in process that happens?
I think with just Bill, it's the expectation of his famous line, do your job. We brought you in here. You know why we brought you in here. Do your job. And he didn't like the way his job was. His job was a bit more as a coverage linebacker and not as a rusher, which he wanted to be. So he wasn't doing what he wanted to do or felt he wanted to do. So he wasn't happy about that. And I think at some point, as you would know, Mike, it can kind of steamroll on you and just turn into a miserable experience.
It's also the day-to-day grind of this, because these guys aren't, because of the expectation, because of the standard, they won't compromise. Harry Hiestands, the offensive line coach for the Chicago Bears, was my offensive line coach my last year at Notre Dame. And every time I hear Louis Riddick, who played for Bill Belichick and for Nick Saban, any of these Saban and Belichick disciples, anytime I hear them talk about playing for those guys, I instantly in my mind understand, because that was playing for Harry Hiestand. Most days I walked into that building dreading being in there, because every day you were never going to be allowed to slip up and have it go unnoticed. There was never going to be we'll get it next time. You're held accountable for everything you do. And that's not an easy thing. People think they want to be coached. People think they want to be pressed on these things. And then you have someone do it for every mistake, every day, for everything you do, and walking in that building can get miserable. Now, on the back end, you can be pushed to a place you didn't think was possible, and you can be better than you ever were, but that's not for everybody. People think it might be for them. People might say it, but when they have to live it every day, it's different, and it's not for everyone. And so he can be right when he says this.
That was your experiences while you got yelled at a whole lot. You made you the best player you could be there.
It was my best season. We were 12-0. I started every game. It was awesome, but there were games I was called, you get called to the mat in a way that is uncomfortable. You dread going into practice a lot of days, and you don't walk around feeling great all the time in that. It is not, to his point, it's not fun. But it gets the job done, and it gets the most out of you.
Okay, so how do you balance that with, like, the fact that winning is supposed to be fun? Like, you get a rush out of a win.
Winning is supposed to be fun. You know when winning is fun is when, if you'd have won the national championship game when the clock hits 0 and they won. When the Super Bowl is over and it's all zeros and you won. That's when it's fun.
And it was fun after. I have a great relationship with Harry Hiestand now. That guy has gone to bat for me, and that's the other thing, is these guys go to bat for you at every turn. When you give to them, they will give to you in return. And now I can look back on that season fondly, and now I can remember all these things well. But earning victory is hard in the process, man. It is hard.
Is it different when you trust the way you're being utilized?
Yes.
Because one thing that really hit me here is he didn't like the way he was being utilized.
Right. Yes.
So then you're sitting there saying, man, you are busting my toes.
It already put you on the defensive.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and then usually in that way, if you don't think you're being utilized right, you're probably not seeing the results you want. And the one thing is, you trust when you're given results. That's why most guys will go and they'll wear it New England, because they know the end result is usually the Super Bowl. That's why offensive linemen under Harry Hiestand would wear it, because most of them end up getting drafted in the first round if you stick around this guy long enough.
Yeah, I'm not going to throw any shade at this guy at all, because there's plenty of guys out there that are having a miserable existence of where they are, but it's things you put up with. This whole thing, it's supposed to be fun because it's a game. Get over it. This is your job, that what you have to do. And while you want it to be fun, and a lot of times it can be fun, I mean, it's work. It is work, and people are constantly grinding at you, both physically and mentally.
But this is a styles make fight thing, because the guys in Philadelphia will tell you it's not the same for them over there. The guys in Seattle might say this wasn't like that for us. So there's no one way to win.
Exactly,
but we've seen the consistent way involves a little bit of pain with these guys.
It's interesting too, because Cassius came from Seattle, right? So he came from a much different environment.
Yes.
And I realized that what I did in my previous life far different than what you guys did. But I've said for years, we didn't have a lot of fun on the road. Like that was never like when I was touring, it was not about having fun. It was about working as many shows as you could, working as many relationships as you could, and getting your songs to number one. My touring life was not fun. Now there were camps that had like Luke Bryan's guys were having a blast, and we would literally at festivals drive by Luke's guys, and they're playing cornhole and drinking beers at 2 p.m, and we're going to a rehearsal studio, and we're like, man, why do they get to have so much fun? But it's what it took for us to have hits.
You go back in time, you look at the 49ers teams when they were winning and how those players were treated like gold there, and the way Bill Walsh ran his program more player friendly. You go to the three titles, but 2 under Jimmy Johnson when they were winning Super Bowls. These dudes were in pads at the Super Bowl. These dudes were practicing at the Super Bowl in full pads. Jimmy Johnson was as tough as they come, but he got results. So to your point, Mike, you could get results. It could just be a different way. And I don't know, Lane Johnson, everybody's saying Lane Johnson is now justified. Is he? They got the 1 Super Bowl ring. We'll see where we're going. It's great where there are guys on New England that have multiple. And that's the whole idea, is to win championships. And it may not be the greatest experience all the time in your life, but you know what? The end result is and for everybody it's different. For this guy, it wasn't good. And I think a lot of it stemmed from he felt he was being played out of position.
Yeah, this is not a sentiment that is unique to him, but I know guys that have been in that building there that did like the way that they enjoy knowing what the expectation is, but it's not for everyone. So he can say this. We can disagree with him. He's not wrong.
He's right for himself.
He's right for himself. He's right for plenty of other people that we've heard. The sentiment is not wrong, but you can understand why on the other side no one's going to want to hear it.
The fact is, everybody can win here. He can go have a great career in San Francisco,
absolutely.
And we know the Patriots are still going to be fine. Coming up next, the Cubs went 108 years between titles. Impressive, but how about a 135-year gap? That's next.
At Trex, we know there's a place for wood in your backyard. We recommend the fire pit. But when it comes down to choosing the right material for your next deck, look no further than the superior beauty and durability of the world's #1 premium decking brand. Trex delivers the look of wood without all of the work and the worry, and it's made from 95% recycled materials, which makes it the right choice for your backyard 100% of the time. To learn how to make Trex your next deck, visit Trex.com to order samples.
To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests on the show, Pennzoil Performance Line, Jason Fitz in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic and Mike Golic Jr., and we're going to go straight to that Shell Pennzoil Performance Line where Yale lacrosse coach Andy Shay joins us, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Coach, your national champs Yale, we've been playing it all morning. It's one of the most sincere, cool moments I've heard from a coach in a long time. How is the emotion setting in now a few hours later, realizing that you're a national champion?
Well, it is starting to set in a little bit. It was a pretty crazy moment, and, Paul Clark-Stay has been so good to our program and so supportive. It was just kind of one of those moments where we've talked about it before, and it just kind of hit me as he was standing there. So sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, Coach. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you just mentioned the journey that you guys have been on, been a coach at Yale since 2003, for your first 6 seasons, losing records to what you've built now. What does the culmination of this feel like for your program?
It's incredibly special for obviously this team, but I feel like it's a big deal for everybody that, has worn a Yale uniform and sacrificed and maybe didn't get to this level of this great a season. I mean, some of those guys that were on some of those teams that didn't make it to the NCAAs worked just as hard. So it's for all those guys.
Talking to Andy Shay, Yale lacrosse coach, as Yale wins the men's lacrosse national championship. He was maybe only outdone after the game by Handsome Dan, the Bulldog mascot that was kind of jumping around after the game. It was such a cool sight to see. Coach, take us through the process, especially before this national championship game when so much riding on it, the title, last one in the 1880s, before the NCAA even existed. What was your message to your players before the game against Duke?
Well, I mean, we talk about the process a lot. We talk about making small plays, getting ground balls, and focusing on the details that help us to progress. Just the fundamentals of, playing good defense, getting on hands and sitting down. And, those little things add up. If you don't concentrate on the end result, very often the end result is what you want. So our guys, it's really hard for young athletes to do that, I think. And our guys have a ton of trust, and, they pulled it off.
So where did that come from, Coach? What made this team different than your previous teams?
Well, like I said, I mean, they've all had the same message over the years. I feel like we've gotten better every year. It's just gotten to the point where these kids, they're so driven that, we've been to the NCAA tournament 6 times and we've gotten bounced, and the kids just hung with it a little bit more, and they worked a little bit harder, and they were tired of ending the season on a loss. So it just, what they've accomplished is just, you dream of it as a coach, obviously, but just at an Ivy school and, no scholarships, and the fact that these kids are just unbelievable students, and it's really impressive what they've done.
Coach, your team's such a physically impressive bunch. I heard a lot on the broadcast about what goes into building the athletes that you guys have at your school. For this weekend, it's such a showcase for the sport. If you had someone coming by your building and seeing this Yale lacrosse team for the first time, what are you hoping they take away when they look at your group? Well, and we like to think our guys work really hard in the weight room. Our strength coach is phenomenal. I think he's the best in the business, and it's very gratifying to hear people say that the eye test right away is that these guys are really big and really fast. We joke that our guys lift like they're in prison, and it definitely has paid off. Talking to Coach Andy Shay, Yale lacrosse head coach and national champion. And one of those guys that's worked extra hard in his career is Ben Reeves, finished his last career. He's is the all-time leader in goals and points at Yale, a Tewaaraton finalist, and a guy who, by his standards, may be a quiet day with 1 goal and 3 assists. But what has his presence meant to this team this season? I mean, Ben is the best player to ever wear a Yale lacrosse uniform. There's no question about it. He's terrifying for all of our opponents. I bet I'm going to get a bunch of graduation gifts from all the league coaches for Ben. He doesn't have to be the guy, but like I said, he's just such a presence over there. Like, he can take over a game when need be, and it's just such a luxury as a coach to know that you've got the best player in the country, in your pocket if you need to, you need a goal at the end of the game, or you need to ice a game. It's been a luxury for 4 years, and now it's over. So we got somebody else who's got to step up and be that guy. Andy Shay, head coach of Yale lacrosse, haven't had a losing season since 2010, 3-time Ivy champs, 5-time Ivy tournament champ, and now national champ to go along with it. All right, take us down. You had the 10-5 lead in the game, but you knew Duke wasn't going to be done. It's 13-11, under a minute to go, and they're a man up. Take us through your thought process there, and quite honestly, your nerves at that point. Yeah, I mean, I tried to stay composed for the guys, and really the whole day it was one of those things where we just wanted to stay even keeled. We got to push with, I guess, 40-something seconds left, and Justin Gutterding, being the extremely intelligent player that he is, immediately threw the ball out of bounds instead of carrying it. I thought most players would just carry it, and then the penalty wouldn't happen until you changed possession, but he did that right away. But man down, those guys have done a phenomenal job. My assistant coach, Andrew Baxter, coaches the man down. They've really improved the entire season. They've been incredible in the NCAA tournament. They had to come up with 1 kill. The ball squirted through to their guy at the end, and Jack Starr made a save. And Chris Keating, who picks up every ground ball that's near him, got it and ran to the end line and
it was over.
Coach, your athletic director, Tom Beckett's retiring. He's the guy that hired you 15 years ago. What does it mean to deliver a national championship for him in his final year?
Yeah, I mean, it means everything, and it's we thought about, we were a top 5 preseason team. We thought we had a chance, but you had to get lucky too, and it just felt like there was, and he would never put this on us or the team, but it just felt like there was a countdown clock, and we had stickers on our helmet that said TB, but the kids love him, you know what I mean? He knows every student athlete at Yale, and I think the guys were really excited that we could help to, just deliver this to him, in his retirement year, his victory lap, so to speak. And it just really felt fitting for him to be able to be on the field at the end of that, when they hoisted the trophy.
Yale Lacrosse head coach Andy Shay. All right, Coach, you mentioned victory laps. We're in Connecticut. You guys and the fellas at Wesleyan who won the D3 title have put Connecticut lacrosse on the map. We looking at a parade here?
I'm not sure about that.
All right.
Connect with John Raba, Wesleyan coach. We were psyched for those guys. Merrimack won the Division II national championship, so it's an all New England lacrosse titles.
You're not talking us out of the parade at this point. I mean, you're only giving us more reason to want the parade, Coach.
Exactly.
I'm not a big parade guy. I'm not a big attention guy, so I'm not sure if I'll be there if we do one.
We'll hold it down for you, Coach. Congratulations on the national title. Great accomplishment for you and the team. All the best and success going forward.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Maybe we could just throw like a massive party, and just have like a special booth in the corner.
Isn't New Haven? They got great pizza down there too, right?
Yes.
So yeah, we could parade with pizza.
We just need to pull the Lebitard show. We can succeed where they failed with UCF. UCF didn't want to pony up with them in their national championship.
And by the way, Yale really actually won the national championship.
Yeah, we've got actual national champs up here. What do you got?
Let's remember too that this is Yale, and these players. I love how the coach explained they live like they're in prison, but. The senior attacker, Ben Reeves, who you mentioned, had 62 goals and a program record 115 points a season. He's a molecular cellular developmental biology major with a 3.89 GPA.
I'm not even comfortable with hearing that.
I had to talk slow just to say it, let alone he does it. Ridiculous.
And no scholarships. So really incredible what they're doing. Congratulations to them on the national championship. Now I'm a big Yale lacrosse fan.
There you go. See, we're bringing you along. Hey guys, this is Mike Golic.
And this is Trey Wingo.
You ever wish you could wake up early in the morning and have donuts with your dad and us?
For Father's Day this year, you can. We're teaming up with Sport Clips Haircuts for a Dad's Day getaway. An all-expense-paid trip to ESPN, including a day spent with us on the show.
Plus, my son Junior, it is for Father's Day, isn't it?
Register for your chance to win online at sportclips.com/ESPN and make priceless memories.
No purchase necessary. See rules at sportclips.com/ESPN. U.S. only. Age 18 and up and 6/15/18.
Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Jason Fitz in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic Jr. Maybe one of the greatest rivalries in all sports has additional beef, and I relish getting to talk about it. See?
Come on.
It just keeps going. It keeps going.
You're a wiener.
American treasure Joey Chestnut wants to compete against Kobayashi. As you know, that would mean hot dog eating. But at some point, Kobayashi has blocked Chestnut on Twitter, and now he won't compete against him unless he gets that unblock.
Well, the thing about it is now he was banned from the Super Bowl of the eating competition is a Nathan's hot dog eating contest on July 4th. Kobayashi, I think, won it 5 times. Chestnut had won it, I believe, 9 or 10 times. And Kobayashi was banned from that event. So
contract disputes between him and Major League Eating. The business side of sports, messy.
Again, it's not all fun and games, gang. There's
Condiments
negotiations, there's business, and Kobayashi was banned. So there's a petition to get him back. But Chestnut is all for that because of the competition. But as you mentioned, he wants to be unblocked by Kobayashi first. Kobayashi blocked him. This is the social media world we're in right now. So if this rivalry is to continue, Kobayashi needs to get back in to be allowed to eat in that contest, and he needs to unblock Joey Chestnut.
Not even asking for a follow, just for an unblock. I mean, That's a pretty easy piece to go through, right?
How good is Kobayashi's Twitter if he's just begging for the unblock? I just want to read your tweets. I don't even need the validation of a follow back. It's sort of sad.
I don't want to be cheesy or anything, but I feel like, again, another food pun, got nothing for it. I feel like we need both of them for the hot dog eating contest, right? The hot dog eating contest needs...
Well, because Chestnut hasn't been challenged, at this point. And everybody needs a challenge. If you're going to watch, you want to see a race. You see a lot of people in it. I couldn't make it the one year. I actually got offered one of the media spots.
Yeah.
And people always guessed how many could I think, do you think you could eat more than me in the it's 10 minutes now. People asked how many they thought I could eat. The record, what is he at? 72, I think, is right around the record.
Oh my God.
Right in that area there. People thought I could eat way more than I actually could. People were putting me in the 20s. I think if I could get in the teens, I would be happy.
If I could get in double digits, 72 would legitimately kill me. My heart would stop, my stomach would rupture, and I would just die.
Would you be willing to go through the whole process of dipping the bun and
Well, you'd have to be.
Right.
And again, I think the record is 70.
72 was last year.
72.
That was the note I was just handing.
72 was last year. Yeah, but they eat the hot dog separately than the bun, and they dip the bun in the water to loosen it up, and that, so it's like mush.
My favorite part about this from Joey Chestnut's end, too, is he had a subsequent tweet that said, "This is my drunk confession for the night. I miss Kobayashi." I imagine him sitting there like Mel Gibson, drunk over a basket of fries, just sitting there like, "I miss you, Kobayashi. Come back, come back."
He shouldn't be drinking right now. He's got to be in full training mode. I mean, I want him in full training mode. We're not that far off from the 4th of July. What's he doing with himself? He needs to be focused.
Up the degree of difficulty right now. If you're not going to get challenged, you make challenges for yourself. Do it drunk.
30 for 30 podcast, by the way, guys, have returned. Subscribe to 30 for 30 podcast right now in the Listen tab of the ESPN app or on Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Delta, where it's our goal to connect your life in the air to your life on the ground. Chestnuts won 10 of the last 11 mustard belts.
Yeah.
Kobayashi won the last 6 before that.
Right, and they haven't really been contested, so these two need to be back together again. If you guys could pick one food out there, I ask everybody at Golic and Wingo, could pick one food where you think you could dominate an eating contest. Any food, because they eat anything. There are contests where they're eating bowls of mayonnaise and how many pounds of mayonnaise they could add. I'll have to get the list of what the records are for the different foods. There's cow brains, mayonnaise. It's unreal. So if you could pick a food, anything, what would you pick?
A mayonnaise eating contest, by the way, is the whitest thing on earth.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think I would do well. Like, I learned this last year competing in donuts and losing to Junior. I don't do well with speed. If you give me like an hour.
No. You don't have an hour.
It's an eating contest. What do you mean I don't do well with speed? It's
quantity.
It's like saying you want to race in NASCAR, but you're afraid to put your foot on the pedal.
And as a screen, I'm watching Kobayashi eat 2 pizzas in 2 minutes. Wow.
Oh my God.
Cake?
I feel like I could really
there is
some
cake.
Steak.
We're going to get the list. There is cake for the record.
Ice cream and French fries.
See,
either
ice
of
cream.
those.
Like, you couldn't beat your buddy Dane Christ or your quarterback at Notre Dame and eat ice cream.
He's the fattest skinny kid on planet Earth.
But that gives you such a brain freeze.
Exactly. You can't have the brain freeze, Mike.
There are tricks for this, all right? The true pros know.
Oh, wow.
They go to Lowe's for pros or something.
Oh, my God. That's so well played, but also so terrible at the same time. Coming up, we got the result we all expected, but was the ride interesting enough? We'll answer it. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio.